Usually my intros are elaborate and the video is primarily objective, but I want to just dive straight in and be as controversial as possible for a move like this. The Philadelphia 76ers signed LeBron James on a 2-year, $8 million contract with a player option in the second year. And I'm generally not a fan of this. I was always against LeBron signing in Philly ever since the destination was mentioned, but for it to become reality is bizarre. Before I get into why I don't like this move, let's just get into how this team can actually operate. First off, congrats to the Sixers GM, especially because I'm pretty sure they just fired their old one. On paper, you traded for Jaylen Brown, signed LeBron James for cheap, and drafted Phylon. Getting LeBron James for cheap was essential due to the amount of expensive paydays most of the elites on this roster are making, even if you are getting more bang for your buck are replacing Paul George with Jaylen Brown. Anyway, onto the on-court stuff, this team is stacked on paper. You already had the pick and roll of Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. On top of VJ Edgecombe accompanying Maxey in that backcourt. Those three alone were already a matchup problem all three are playing, as you need to be able to keep up with Maxey's speed, be athletic enough to stay in the area of VJ, and be muscular enough to not be thrown around by Embiid. Then you have Jaylen Brown's mid-range and downhill pressure on top of LeBron's unmatched intangibles and anticipation, and I'd say you have the most offensively versatile team in the entire league. Not to mention that transition offense, which admittedly could get insanely fun. That's kind of where the positives end for me. Yeah, the ceiling of the offense could be monstrous, but the floor might be even more terrifying as this offense could hit some insane lows. Let's first talk about the spacing. I'm not even really just talking about three-point shooting here. LeBron can play on the perimeter, creating the pick and roll and get hot from the perimeter as well. But at this point in his career, he likes to play down low, bully mismatches in the post, and cut off the ball to get easier looks. The issue is Embiid is also trying to do the same thing, and his mobility and aggressiveness on the boards has taken a hit after all those injuries. And all this is not mentioning that Jaylen Brown and VJ are also trying to get into that painted area themselves. I'm not saying there can't be sacrifice and set plays where all those threats are leveraged. I'm just saying their approaches are so similar it can obviously be a detriment. And now we can talk about the three-point shooting on this roster. Outside of Maxey, none of the big names on this roster shot above 36% from three. VJ was pretty close to 35.4%. So if you like to count that, I'll give it to you. Jaylen Brown shot under 35%, and Embiid shot around 33%, and LeBron barely shot above 30%. These guys have had their seasons of three-point shooting excellence, don't get me wrong, but hoping that at least one of these guys shoots up by 3 to 4% definitely isn't optimal, especially with the departure of Andre Drummond, who, even though didn't shoot above 36%, was very close. Since I brought up Drummond, some might mention the newcomers in Anthony Simons and Dean Wade. Anthony Simon's shot selection is a bit infuriating at times, but yeah, I'll give that to 100%. He's a good shooter. Dean Wade definitely isn't going to torch you or shoot a ton of threes at volume, but he has back-to-back-to-back seasons of shooting above 36%, so that's a cool addition. I'll give that to you as well. Those two help the spacing, yeah, but the rest of the roster still isn't potent enough as spot-up or pull-up shooters to cancel the spacing issue I mentioned earlier, especially since it's still the opposite issue since those who can't get to the rim while the elites can't shoot. Even when you just glance at this roster as a whole, the defense is very questionable. Maxey tries, yeah, but LeBron can't overexert himself at his age, and Embiid has trouble moving like he used to. Brown is a very good isolation defender, but he won't generate turnovers or be alert off the ball. Kelly Oubre did a fantastic job on Tatum in the playoffs, but he lost his athleticism and defense this offseason as well, plus the screen navigation of Quentin Grimes. Don't get me wrong, Jaylen Brown is a better player and definitely a better asset than Paul George, but PG is a solid isolation defender himself while being way more active off ball. A better team defender and generates a drastic amount more turnovers, as I said in my previous videos. The only way I can see the defense working out is if VJ has a Phoenix Suns with Mikal Bridges caliber, all-defensive second team defensive season, and even then, he alone isn't enough. I'm kind of all over the place with my complaints, but the overall depth and connected piece just aren't it. The Sixers picked up Huck Porty in free agency, but if you're banking on a breakout from him or Dem Bona for your front court to be threatening, you're too far deep in. Okay, my last complaint before we wrap up and speak about lineups, and I kind of addressed this earlier. Brown liked taking that lead role last season, and I'm not saying he's an issue in the locker room in terms of attitude, but if he has Maxey and and LeBron taking a chunk of his possessions away from his hands and the offense is an utter mess, the chemistry and vibe throughout the entire locker room can get messy real fast with the clash of personalities. For a sign-up, it's almost a consensus at this point. Maxey, Edgecombe, Brown, and Embiid. If you want to bolster the bench and allow VJ to be the captain of the second unit, that could happen while Dean Wade to the small forward spot, Brown slides down to the shooting guard. I don't really see this being ran unless VJ is out due to injury, though. Okay, so this is me post-recording. This is editing me. I actually want to say before the outro, that I do like this a bit more after sitting on it a little bit more, just going around the house a bit, just thinking about it while I'm just like not doing anything. And it's not my favorite destination, but when you have that many amount of players, you can like I did say in my Eastern Conference is stacked video that the Sixers can kind of just be better, even if they're not creating more open looks or they don't look like the better team. They can just hit tougher shots. They can just out talent you and just win games that way. Would I bet on it every single game? No, especially with how the NBA is currently. But I do think we could see a bit more of a healthy Embiid with the least load that he's had his entire career. He's like, I think, the third, fourth option on the team. So when you have Embiid not having to be that aggressive on the offensive end, he can maybe divert more attention to the boards. But even if he gets injured based off of that, when he gets back, just have somebody else take that role. Maybe Bron takes that primary rebounder role. I wouldn't bet on that either. But I actually do like the versatility in the bench units. Like, you can kind of just, like, Bron just subbed out. You can have VJ and Embiid. You can have Tyrese Maxey and Embiid. You can have Tyrese Maxey and Bron. You can have Bron and VJ. You can just have so many combinations. You can, Jaylen Brown. You can have Jaylen Brown and Bron, Jaylen Brown and Embiid, Jaylen Brown and Maxey, Jaylen Brown and VJ. You can just have so many different combinations out there on the floor. That's about it for my opinion. Maybe I'm not thinking enough. Maybe I'm thinking too much. I like to see how Cleveland and Minnesota operate in reaction to this move. But hey, we'll see. Let me know if I'm on to something or if I'm on something. Y'all have a good day.